100,000 people. Tirzepatide, the active ingredient in drugs like Zepbound and Mounjaro, both popular for weight loss, found that people taking the highest dose of the drug lost more weight and had a much lower chance of developing diabetes compared to those people who took placebo, which is a substance given to people to produce a psychological benefit. Ryan Hedrick, 93 WIBC Mobile News.
And someone bought a $40,000 winning Hoosier lottery ticket at a get-go in Indianapolis on Tuesday night. I'm John Herrick on the level, on the go, and on WIBC.com. Now here's your American Standard Cooling Weather Center forecast with Ryan Morse.
Mostly sunny once again for tomorrow. High temperature near 80 degrees. Sunny skies continue into Friday. Temperatures start to warm up even more into the mid-80s. I'm Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Ryan Morse for 93 WIBC.
Hi, this is Denny Smith, and I don't think folks really appreciate just how bad indoor air quality is this time of year. Between the pollen and dirt, dander, and who knows what else, it takes a professional to clean them out of your ductwork and your carpets. How about having Zero Res help you take on all of that with a great August special? Get 3 rooms Zero Resified starting at just $119 and take 20% off their duct cleaning services too. For the record, this isn't your normal cleaning of ductwork and carpets. The new H2 HyperVac truck is Zero Res's amazingly efficient tool to clean your ducts effectively. And after cleaning the ductwork, don't forget to clean the largest air filter in your home, your carpets, with the ZR Water Difference. No soap, no residue, no harsh chemicals, leaving things really clean. Now mention WIBC and get 3 rooms of carpet cleaning starting at $119, plus you get 20% off their very effective duct cleaning. Call 317-388-5141. Book online at zeroresindy.com.
Hey, this is Spencer Thompson at Thompson Furniture and Mattress in Columbus. Now through Monday, Smith Brothers of Burton Furniture is on sale during the factory authorized sale. 1,000 fabrics, 100 leathers, lifetime warranty, completely custom, made in Indiana. It's the best and it's the lowest price in 2024. Lazy Boy recliners start at $499, and Tempur-Pedic and Stearns & Foster mattresses are up to $900 off. Sale ends Monday only at Thompson Furniture and Mattress in Columbus.
Garage door problems? Call today for service today. Garage Doors of Indianapolis services all makes of garage doors 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Call today for service today. 875-4577. Call today for service today. Get it fixed right now. Call Garage Doors of Indianapolis at 875-4577 or visit doorstoday.com.
In the morning, call 875-4577. For service today. Today.
Tony Katz.
It's Kendall and Casey.
The Amber and Nigel show. All right, when does your show start? Do we know? I feel like I've been promoting this for 9 years now.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast, live from Chicago at the Democratic National Convention. I'm Tony Kinnett, and there's a lot that is going on. Things are rapidly changing on the ground here, and the very second this evening that this show is over, I am throwing on the vest right over there and sprinting back down to a riot that unfortunately I had to leave just in order to make it back for the show. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the quick news of the day, and then we are going to hit what has to be one of the dumbest things in this entire situation regarding the riots that have been ramping up. Over 60 arrested here in Chicago, and all of them are just going to be let right back out onto the street. No bail, no prosecution, no nothing. But before we get to that, we have to talk about some of the whining. Because while maybe those of you that aren't in Chicago believe that all of us are aware of each other at the same time, that perhaps inside the DNC, when they're actually inside on the floor of the convention, that everyone's sitting there and there's sweat on the back of their neck and they're nervous because, oh man, are those rioters getting close? That's actually not happening at all. That's not the case. In fact, what's actually going on is there are 2 separate events here. So you have all of the riots and the chaos and the mess that's out on the outside of the perimeter. And on the inside, you have this very Hunger Games-esque separate society of aristocrats who are overjoyed at watching Obama speak and Michelle speak, and oh, wasn't it just a spiritual experience, as one CNN commentator put it. And now tonight we're going to get even more of the excitement and just, oh, thank goodness, oh, the celebrities, guys. John Legend, Indiana came, Sean Astin came up, old Rudy, he's up there. He was so excited to talk about the first woman president, Mr. Frodo. We're going to have the first black woman president, Mr. Frodo. And oh, so exciting, so much drama, so much amazingness. And that's okay for the Democrats. They're allowed to make a big production out of everything. Now, there have been some conservatives who decided to don a wig, a hat, and sunglasses. And I don't remember what it is that James O'Keefe was wearing, but there are 3 conservative influencers that I know of. One being Matt Walsh from the Daily Wire, one being Mike Lindell, the MyPillow guy, and then the other being James O'Keefe, formerly of Project Veritas, famous for undercover investigations, who donned disguises and went to the Democrat National Convention. Some of them, like Matt Walsh, made it to the floor. Some of them, like Mike Lindell, got into a really huge argument about voter fraud. And then I'm not really sure what James O'Keefe was doing, but this has caused a lot of drama. Because, as you guys know, there's a lot of pearl clutching going on. Oh, you mean to tell me that Republicans would ruin a sacred event like the DNC? That when I make my 4-year pilgrimage to to Chicago for the DNC, these conservatives would send undercover people. How could they do this? And there's clutching everywhere. Oh, these dirty, nasty, stinky Republicans showing up to a Democrat event. Democrats would never. They sound like Claire off of Andy Griffith when she's insulted. Never do such a thing. My stars. And there's just been such petulant whining about this all day. Well, I have to let you in on a little secret. First of all, Democrats have been doing the exact same thing to Republicans for ages, so this is fair game. And by the way, I point out that Molly Jong-Fast, a liberal commentator, put on a stoner beanie and a very weird-looking knit scarf. I hope her grandmother didn't knit that for her, because if her grandmother had, I would probably think her grandmother dead to knit a scarf that ugly. She was wandering through the Conservative Political Action Conference in 2020, and I spotted her. She didn't like being spotted. I didn't have her thrown out. I just talked to her for a few seconds. People from the other party come to the convention of the other party. It's called Oppo Research. Kind of amazing concept. It's been going on for a very freaking long time. Since the Federalists were spying on the Democratic Republicans right after we threw some political parties together. After, George Washington told us not to explicitly. So there's a lot of that pearl clutching going on. And I've also been accused and lumped in. There's an article that is currently out that's whining that Tony Kinnett decided to infiltrate these protests against Israel's brutal genocide. Oh no! Did I do anything nefarious? Something gross and disgusting? Did Matt Walsh, when he was walking around in the background of Chuck Schumer's interview on CNN, was he doing anything obscene, disturbing? No. I stood in a golf polo at the front of the march and I recorded what was going on at the march. Yeah, that's it. I hate to tell you that's like all I've been up to, but that's like a bulk of what I've been up to, because a lot of the media is not reporting things that are happening on the ground. So, for example, there have been over 60 arrests, but the real news story that we're going to be discussing a little bit more today is that all of these individuals are set to be released because of one George Soros-funded DA here in Chicago. I know that's shocking and surprising, but we can't focus on, just a couple dozen petty criminals who, may have rioted, may have assaulted police officers, may have assaulted others, vandalized, crimes. Oh, pshaw, guys, we have more important things to worry about. Like, is Kamala Harris' husband gonna get up on stage and embarrass himself again? What's his name? Doug M. No one cares. And then you've got good old Tim Walz and his wife who says really awkward, Native American slurs. Good for them being around. He always is cheering and shaking his hands at nothing in particular. I'll have to show you guys this when we get home and we can air some of the footage that we've collected over the week. There was one particular moment in the last week on the campaign trail in which Tim Walz started clapping and cheering, and the camera panned, and honest to God, there was nothing for him to cheer at, so he's just having hallucinations. But, if you lived in Minnesota, you'd have hallucinations too. We don't syndicate to anywhere in Minnesota yet, and given how much I keep slamming the entire state, I don't think that we'll be syndicating there anytime soon. But that is a particular state in the Midwest that, while the Democrats believe Tim Walz is going to bring that and many of the other Rust Belt states kind of into the Kamala Harris camp, there are some severe cracks that are developing for the Harris campaign. And guys, I told you to your faces, it was too early for all of the celebrations. I said, guys, I don't know if the DNC, this is supposed to be Kamala's big night. She's going to be crowned prom queen. We're all going to say she's amazing. No one's going to speak to her because you can't possibly speak to someone so joyous and noble and brave and adjective. You can't just do that. We're just going to get up there, praise her, talk about how wonderful she is. Maybe the CNN commentator from last night will talk about how much of a spiritual experience it was when he was comparing Obama to Thurgood Marshall and Michelle Obama to Louis Armstrong. Okay. Well, this is Kamala's night. And, guys, she's not getting the bump in the polls that she was supposed to. Now, you may say, but I've seen people on the internet saying that her polls are going up. That's true. Her national polls are going up. But, guys, California is already voting blue. And sport, I hate to break it to you, but whether Kamala wins California by 10,000 votes or by 50,000 votes, she still only wins the state's electoral college votes allotted to it. What matters are the swing states. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, now Virginia, apparently in toss-up territory, Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, and if you're not intelligent, North Carolina. North Carolina is not a swing state. If someone tries to tell you North Carolina is a swing state, I'm not going to tell you to slap them because that's rude and, also assault. But, hold them in lower esteem because North Carolina is no. Honey, their Democrat governor is very, very, very unpopular. Roy Cooper, when he's not, shouting racist stereotypes, has usually got his foot wedged into his mouth, which, funnily enough, is what happens when he's screaming racial stereotypes. So what about the swing states? How are they responding to the joy, the brat summer of Kamala Harris? How's it going? Well, Trump's still up in Pennsylvania. Despite every single resource from here to Saskatoon being thrown at the Pennsylvania Commonwealth. Trump's just holding there. Republicans have won Pennsylvania trailing by 10 points in the state's presidential election history. If Trump is tied in Pennsylvania, look, you can round up as many vans full of all the ballot harvesters you got, all the early voting you can muster from here to the Pennsylvania State Education Association. You can give every teacher the striking time to go campaign on your behalf. You may be my guest. And if Trump is tied with Kamala in the polling come November in Pennsylvania, he wins. He does. I'm sorry. An energetic Democratic base is not enough. Hanging all of your hats on the suburban women vote ain't enough. And the jobs numbers are the biggest piece of the pie to go wrong. So between March of last year and this year, we now have confirmed, or at least the Biden administration has finally admitted, that it overestimated how many jobs it created. You know how Biden and Harris won't shut up about all these jobs they've created. They actually overestimated it by 818,000. So, that economy is just banging right along, ladies and gentlemen. Well, we're going to actually cut away from the glee of losing a fairly winnable election for either candidate. We're going to move over to a little bit more about how you create a riot. Because I know you out there, you're thinking, how do you incite a riot? How do you take a protest from yelling angry slogans to duking it out with the Chicago police on a beautiful Wednesday evening, as this currently is? Well, we're going to go into it next. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated, first on 93 WIBC.
Kendall and Casey.
Hours upon hours of them telling you how great Joe Biden is, then telling you in the same speeches how screwed up things are in the country. How can both of these things be true?
Yes, we love you, Joe. Thank you, Joe. You've done so much for the country. Now get out.
Kendall and Casey, weekdays 9 till noon on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
If you can't get a good night's sleep, let me ask you, Are you breathing well? Because if you're snoring or waking up each night with a stuffed up nose, or frustrated with your CPAP mask, the root of your sleep problem lies in your breathing triangle. And if any one of those passages isn't working, you won't sleep well, and there's no mattress, pill, or other gimmick that can fix that. I'm Dr. Madan Kandula. A recipe for a good night's sleep starts with an open airway. Now, there are devices that can help solve snoring or sleep apnea problems. If you walk into a sleep center, know you'll walk out with a CPAP. And you might find other options elsewhere, but the simple truth is, if your nose doesn't work properly, no device will help. Only at Advent will you find every effective snoring and sleep apnea solution, along with a world-class team that can get your nose working properly again.
Go to adventknows.com to schedule your appointment, because Advent knows when you breathe well, you live better.
People are talking about Window Nation. Their Window Nation customer, Vicky, says, we couldn't be happier. This was a great experience. She's just one of over 33,000 five-star reviews. That's because Window Nation is all about the value. And this August, they're giving you great value during the Window Nation anniversary sale. Right now, buy 2 windows, get 2 free, plus no interest or payments for 24 months. And if you act now, you'll get an extra $250 credit.
Window Nation values your satisfaction in their quality, service, and affordability. That's why they stand behind their windows with a lifetime warranty. Window Nation was also recently ranked highest on Forbes' list of best window installation companies. So you can trust Window Nation for high-quality, affordable windows. Hurry, this big sale ends August 31st. Schedule that in-home estimate right now at 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com.
Are you ready to smell better naked? I'm Dr. Shannon Klingman, the OBGYN creator of Lumi, the whole body deodorant that's clinically proven to control odor for 72 hours on pits, feet, privates, and beyond. It's pH optimized to safely and effectively control odor anywhere you have it, but wish you didn't. Plus, it's proven to work better than a shower with soap alone. Whether you shower twice a day or 3 times a week, Lumi works better. And who doesn't want zero body odor? With over 200,000 five-star reviews, I'm so sure you're going to love it, or you can return it for free.
There's a special offer for listeners. Use code BETTER and get 15% off your first purchase with code BETTER, like the Lumi Starter Pack, Acidified Body Wash, or new Lumi Plus Sweat Control. That's LUME deodorant.com, code BETTER for 15% off your first purchase. Love it or return it for free. That's LUME deodorant.com, code BETTER to save 15% today.
Lanny went to college and racked up huge debt.
A little bit over $100,000.
For a degree he couldn't use? Now what?
I had a friend that went to my computer career and they talked to me about it.
He was done in just months.
I did do it online.
They even helped him get hired immediately after graduation.
One of the things I love about IT is that you can work from anywhere you want.
You could become an IT pro in just months with zero experience at My Computer Career.
It worked for me and I know it can work for you.
It's not rocket science. It's mycomputercareer.edu.
Terry Stacy here. Honey Baked Ham isn't just for the holidays. Stop in for lunch and choose from handcrafted sandwiches, salads, soups, and more. Or take home a Heat and Serve family meal that comes with a home-style main dish, sides, and rolls. Perfect for busy weekend nights and better than fast food. Have a special event this summer? Let Honey Baked cater with sandwich trays or a VIP buffet with all the extras. Honey Baked on West 96th Street in Indy or Greyhound Pass in Carmel makes it easy to serve something special any day of the year.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQuil.
ZQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQuil nights. Explore our products at ZQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
So, I'm going to let you guys in on a little bit of a secret in the industry, perhaps. A little psychology, a little brilliant scientific engineering behind the anthropological fascination behind how to incite a riot. Now, some of you will want to take notes, and I hope that you do, because there will be a quiz at the end of the lesson. Thanks for tuning in. You're listening to the Tony Kinnett cast here first out of 93 WIBC in Indianapolis. And by the way, for those who wonder what the heck that means that I have this station producer in Indy. Her name is Allison. And Allison, especially when I go cover these live events and I wander the streets on the air, sometimes there are people who say very rude things. And sometimes the FCC, they really don't like it when on the air, those protesters say the very rude things into the microphone. It kind of sounds like a sailor's locker room. You see that anyway. So, it's nice to have a little something first so that later on, or simulcasted, when some of the stations, whether again in Arkansas or in Colorado or Wisconsin or in Florida, are tuning in, they don't get the very bad words that get the FCC all up in a bunch. Well, all up in a bunch is definitely how the Democrat National Convention's exterior is going, with a lot of the rioters in the coalition group with the pro-abortion crowd, the pro-Marxism and socialism crowd, meaning that they are actively chanting socialist slogans, they are actively wearing socialist group this t-shirts, they are actively carrying communist flags with a hammer and a sickle, and sometimes an AK-47 on the flag, not carrying an AK-47, although this is Chicago, so I wouldn't put it past them. And then you have the pro-Palestine, the pro-Hamas crowds. And I say, by the way, the pro-Hamas crowds because they were also carrying the flags of Hamas with the green background and the white text, not to be confused with Saudi Arabia's flag, which looks different and also has a sword. Then you have the pro-Taliban faction that is there as well. That's right. Yes, a Taliban flag is there as well. So, just in case Biden wants to leave them some, free U.S. military equipment. And this group, the LGBTQ plus 2IA crowd, goes wherever there are insufferable people. And just, you can always bet on their being there. Well, they're very mad, and they're marching around. And I said earlier on this week that there was a chance that the Chicago Police Department, because of how the officers on the lines were acting, basically from the beat cops all the way up to the riot response and the sergeants in the police force, were doing a phenomenal job of coming in immediately and not moving an inch. In fact, they were moving back the protesters who were beginning to trespass, meaning they were no longer protesters, they were rioters. When you start to break the law, you are no longer peacefully protesting under your constitutional right. You are breaking the law. That means you are rioting. That's how that works. Stay tuned for more fun legal lessons. Now, you might be wondering, how do you turn it into a riot, though? How do you get people whipped up until, I turn on the news the next morning and I see people slugging it out with cops and there's fires burning in barrels and on cars and somebody rips their shirt off for some reason because they can't tell the difference between a riot and a frat party, and it's just streaming full chaos. People are getting injured and people are getting arrested and there's tear gas and there's attack dogs and I think I see Clifford the Big Red Dog dancing over there. How does that happen? Well, I'm going to tell you the secret. What you do is you got to get yourself a really liberal district attorney or a really liberal county or city prosecutor. Now, where I'm from in Indiana, we have one of the most liberal prosecutors. We have Ryan Mears in Indianapolis. And see, what Ryan Mears does is if you get arrested, he'll just let you out of jail with nothing. Because Ryan, you see, he has people that protect him. It doesn't matter if you get stabbed or shot. Ryan doesn't care. And neither do a lot of these liberal prosecutors, because according to Wire Points, in a beautiful piece of investigative reporting, and if you've never followed Wire Points, they're a Chicago and Illinois-based publication that does some phenomenal breaking news reporting. They have a great team of editors over there. We've worked with them before. Cook County's state attorney, Kim Fox, now says she will not prosecute protesters who break the law at this week's Democratic National Convention in Chicago, as long as they are peaceful. You guys know peaceful, right? Remember the mostly peaceful protests in Kenosha? The fires burning down the city? Peaceful. Yes. The reason this is newsworthy, I know you're thinking a liberal district attorney or state attorney not prosecuting crime? I've never heard of this before. Well, the reason this is definitely newsworthy is that on August 13th, leading up to this convention, nary a week ago, she was running her mouth, bragging, you guys better not mess up my streets because we'll prosecute anybody who messes up our streets. Until people who align with her politically were the ones messing up the streets, and now it's the revolving door back again in the beautiful city of Chirac. Now, you might wonder, what does this have to do with inciting a riot? Well, Didn't you catch it? I just gave you the secret. If you want to incite a riot, what you do is you tell the people who are protesting, you can go as far as you want, and I won't prosecute you. So when the 60 individuals, far more since I've come away from the riot to hop on and do the show with y'all, those people let right back out. So what do you just have to do? Avoid just getting your teeth knocked out like one individual did by the Chicago Riot Response Police last night. And you're golden. You get to go out there and smash the fash and punch some cops like a big, strong basement boy. And then you just get released. And you're a national hero to the wonderful socialist cause. I think Bernie sends you nudes or something. I don't know. It's some weird thing that the socialists like to do with each other. So how do you stop a riot from happening? That's how you incite a riot, is you just give them carte blanche. Are you going to arrest them? Yes. The Chicago Police Department is not messing around. But if you don't have a prosecutor that's willing to actually put them behind bars, well then the cops are just there like a cheap one-night bouncer. You know, you're supposed to hire a bouncer for the club that knows the area, that's been there for a while, so repeat offenders can't come back and do the same nonsense multiple nights in a row. That's what these district attorneys don't understand. How do you stop a riot, though? Well, here's how you do. You go in as a police force, you go in hard, and you go in all at once. Now, the reason that Minneapolis and Kenosha were completely unable to quell the riots early on is because they would send in a small squad of cops who were all just wearing the beat cop clothing. And they would bring in some kind of counselor, some HR representative from the force, and they would try to talk, hey, would you think about maybe, moving it on down the road and expressing your feelings here in this lovely feelings circle? No, I'm so sorry, Braxton. That also actually gets people revved up in the riot situation. But if all of a sudden you turn your head to the left and you see two companies of over 175 Chicago riot police, oh yeah, I went back and looked at the video footage and counted, you're welcome, strolling down the police carrying burnished mahogany painted truncheon batons, you're going to think twice because, again, it's kind of nice to have your teeth. I have my teeth. I don't want them knocked out. Do you know what I instantly did when I saw last night the individual duck into the baton? And that is what happened. The officer swung at his face. Oh, wait, he didn't swing at his face. He swung at his chest, and the idiot, thinking he was dodging the baton with the hand-eye coordination of a dead duck, swung his head down and then caught it in the teeth. And then his teeth skittered across the asphalt like chiclets. If you don't want that to happen, by the way, when I saw that, I covered my mouth because it's hard not to feel that in your soul. And, just like how guys, whenever you hear another story about a guy getting kicked between the legs, every guy just goes, ah. Protesters do that too. Rioters, when they see someone else get real consequences that can't be messed with, all of a sudden the guy with the batting cage helmet on feels maybe he's a little out of his league. But if you give him the revolving door and a little bit of a holdup, you're liable to get a mess, which is tonight, as soon as the show's over, the tan vest goes back on and I'm back out to get another glimpse at America's beautiful riot culture. Well, we're going to step away from this just for a minute with a live caller up next. You're not going to want to miss it. Matt Sharp's going to be with us. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast live from the Chicago Riot Land Fun Fest here on the Daily Signal, syndicated to 93 WIBC.
To me, the most important word in the world is dignity. There are certain God-given rights to be fed, to have shelter, medicine, and clothing. When many of our clients come to us, they face the great risk of losing much of what they have. In some cases, losing everything. I'm John Morgan of Morgan & Morgan. In one instant, an accident, a natural disaster, or the intentional acts of others can threaten our dignity. Whether it's the loss of a paycheck, paying medical bills, enduring a life of pain and suffering, or a claim with your own insurance company, or a business dispute, and you can't afford to pay a lawyer by the hour, your dignity hangs in the balance. You only pay us if we recover for you. Let my firm fight for you, your family, and your dignity. Call us for a free consultation. Dial pound law on your cell phone. That's pound 529. Morgan & Morgan, forthepeople.com.
PA Jewelers in Brownsburg is your place for fine jewelry, custom pieces, one-of-a-kind pieces, vintage pieces, and also your place to sell jewelry. 3754 South Green Street in Brownsburg, PA Jewelers inside Premier Arms. You have old jewelry from grandma or jewelry you don't wear anymore? Come sell it for top dollar at PA Jewelers. I've sold jewelry there. My wife has. You're going to love the prices. PA Jewelers inside Premier Arms, 3754 South Green Street in Brownsburg, premierarms.com.
My house has a new glow. I love my windows. Universal Windows Direct.
Hey, it's Rob. Right now, schedule your free in-home estimate. For every 2 windows you buy, you get the next 2 free, plus 0% financing for 60 months. That's 5 years. Restrictions apply. Like me, you'll be saying, I love my windows.
I love my windows. They've got that brand new home effect. Universal Windows Direct.
Do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Are you being audited or investigated? Has the IRS sent you a letter demanding payment? You may not owe what they claim. Make this free call to the tax doctor now. Let them negotiate with the IRS on your behalf. Call 800-631-9123. 800-631-9123. That's 800-631-9123.
The hot summer and the hot deals are coming at Tom Roush Lincoln. 0% for 60 months is back. Get 0% APR for 60 months on every new 2024 Lincoln Navigator. Plus get an additional $4,000 off MSRP. You can also take $3,000 off every new 2024 Lincoln Corsair 70 available. So get in here for one of those hot summer deals at Tom Roush Lincoln in Fishers.
To well-qualified buyers with approved credit. Not all buyers will qualify. Taxes and dealer fees extra. Stock number L24401. MSRP 107,425. Stock number L24284. MSRP is 43,435. See dealer for complete details.
Brace for the Indiana heat with Chapman Heating, Air Conditioning, and Plumbing. Get your AC tune-up for enduring efficiency and comfort. Visit ChapmanHeating.com.
Remember, Chapman, demand for all seasons. ChapmanHeating.com.
Aren't you worried Max might run off?
He's safe. We installed invisible fence. See a special collar?
So he can roam freely but won't leave the yard?
Exactly. And it was so easy. Invisible Fence installed everything and even sent out an expert to train Max.
I need Invisible Fence for Roxy.
Go to invisiblefence.com to get started today, absolutely risk-free. Give your pet freedom and safety. Go to invisiblefence.com right now and schedule your free consultation. Go to invisiblefence.com. That's invisiblefence.com.
Uh-oh, Brad's buzzed.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, he's starting with the whoops. Good thing is, he knows when he's buzzed.
Know your buzzed warning signs? Call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Housing discrimination because of race, color, or national origin is against the law. If you believe you've experienced housing discrimination, contact HUD at hud.gov/fair housing.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast here on 93 WIBC, live from Chicago. Now, I'm not even gonna waste your time. We're gonna cut to the chase because when I've got Matt Sharp on the line, senior counsel, the director of the Center for Public Policy at the Alliance Defending Freedom, here to talk about Michelle Obama, Her Royal Highness. Oh man, we got to go right to it. Matt, how is it going, dude?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Tony.
It is a genuine pleasure. Did you catch Michelle's I mean, it was something. I was sitting next to a bunch of man children who were like crying in joy and ecstasy that she was talking at the DNC. So I was distracted by the lack of testosterone in the room I was present in. In fact, I was worried one of them was going to sniff the testosterone on me and I was going to be thrown out. So tell me a little bit. I know she covered a lot of things in her address. She talked about how men and women are just figments of the imagination, how parents should really leave that whole educating kids thing alone. What were your main takeaways?
Yeah, I listened to it as well, and I had much of the same reaction. There were some very dangerous ideas that she was pushing in all this. Pushing this idea that we're hurting children by helping them embrace their biological sex. Just the opposite is true. We're seeing time and time again studies from Europe, studies from across the world saying pushing kids toward this radical gender ideology, pushing them towards the puberty blockers, hormones, and drugs, that is damaging kids. And yet here's Michelle Obama saying that those that are trying to protect kids from those drugs and surgeries are in the wrong. It's terrible, and yet her speech is really the ideology that's driving so much of the Biden-Harris administration, public schools, the medical establishment, so many others. And it's just troubling to hear it once again preached across the country, and no real understanding of the damage that's doing when we're pushing that on kids.
And I think that that's a really key point, and I think I can underline it with this. It's one thing to stress dangerous ideas, and it is along that same line one thing to believe that passionately, and it is something else entirely to look at her face and watch her smugly deliver this incredibly harmful information, knowing that people are taking her word ex cathedra, straight from the mouth of God in their minds. And that while parents are dealing with the after effects of those who have, again, now transitioned and detransitioned, those who may be sterilized for life or have cancer from the hormonal treatments, or maybe suffering severe psychological trauma, many are, the smugness is really what burns me. You know what I mean? It's because you don't see that with her daughters, right? You don't see that the Obamas raised their daughters very traditionally. And yet, it's, tradition for me and not for thee, stability for me and not for thee. And as a parent, it really stokes something,
Yeah, and it ought to, because here she is saying, parents ought to be pushed out. Well, what's troubling is there was never a mention of parents in this. It all seemed very government focused. The government has to do this. The government has to do that. No, it is the role of parents to decide what's best for their kids. When parents are finding out that their kids are being pushed this gender ideology and these sexualized books and topics at school, parents have a right to know and protect their kids from that. When doctors and clinics are pushing kids to puberty blockers and hormones, parents have the right to step in and shield their child from that. And yet in all of Michelle Obama's discussion, never any recognition of the role of parents of protecting and shielding their kids. Rather, it was almost browbeating parents. How dare you say that kids shouldn't be exposed to these sexualized books and topics? How dare you tell a child that it's not in their best interest to be on puberty blockers and hormones that could render them sterile for life? That's why we need parents, and that's why we don't need big government coming in and trying to replace the vital role of parents.
I'm looking a little bit closer here at the transcript of her speech. Producer Lou sent it over to me today so that I could get a bit of a just kind of a concept of the former First Lady's speech and just kind of the efforts that she's made in the last couple of the last decade, really, through the Obama administration, to dive into social and moral policy that she wasn't elected to participate in. So, Matt Sharp, one of the greatest minds over at the Alliance Defending Freedom, you guys spend countless hours defending the constitutional rights of those who are stepped on consistently. And she talked at length about, she says, Kamala Harris and I built our lives on those same foundational values. And that she's talking about through family farms and factory towns, through tree-lined streets, again, all this very fluffy language. The idea that she's talking about is that people's rights needed to be stepped on in order to lift others up. This idea of forced equity, of telling individuals that really the government can supersede rights. Do you think that we're going to see Kamala Harris be able to provide any kind of constitutional justification for this kind of nonsense? I mean, goodness, weren't there lawsuits regarding her time in the Attorney General office in California? I mean, she's a walking train wreck with this stuff.
Yeah, let's look at the history. So we can start with Michelle Obama. The Obama administration's Department of Education was the first one that was pushing this gender ideology nonsense through Title IX. It was that administration that started telling schools that they had to allow boys and girls restrooms. They had to allow boys on girls sports teams. That we're now seeing the Biden-Harris administration pick up and continue to push across the country. And then you look back at Kamala Harris, back when she was Attorney General, going after pregnancy care centers in the state, trying to force them to violate their beliefs, saying that the state ought to be paying for men to get surgery so that they can go into a women's prison. This is the ideology. This is the history that's there. And it's what we've got to be concerned about, because we've seen how these administrations have acted. We've seen what they've done. And even today, we're pushing back against Title IX and all these efforts to undermine rights of women, fairness in sports, and the ability of parents to raise their children.
Absolutely. So moving forward past this election into the next administration, I know that you guys are working on a lot of important cases. A congratulations early to you on the Supreme Court upholding the temporary ban on the Title IX revision. Do you think that as we go forward, that the Democrats are going to gain any ground on the Title IX rewrite? And if they don't gain ground, what happens next? Do we see the Supreme Court roll back the regulation? I don't really understand the next step in the process regarding that whole chaos.
Yeah, well, again, the Biden administration was pushing this Title IX rewrite, radically redefining sex under Title IX to have all of these harms on women, on girls, and sports, and lockers, and restrooms, and so many other places. Fortunately, we are seeing courts push back and ruling in favor of these states that are saying we are not going to comply with this unlawful rewrite. And then, as you said, just this past Friday, the Supreme Court let those injunctions for Tennessee, Kentucky, Louisiana, and a few other states remain in effect. And that's encouraging. We're seeing what happens when states stand up against the federal government, when they stand for their women and girls, when they stand for fairness and privacy and common sense. We're seeing great court rulings. And so I'm optimistic that we're going to continue to see those victories, and that hopefully the Supreme Court will put this to rest and say that this unlawful rewrite of Title IX is unconstitutional and stop this from happening anymore moving forward, so that no matter who's in the White House, no matter what happens down the road, we're not going to see these efforts to redefine what it means to be male and female in federal law.
As usual, again, Matt Sharp, nobody says it better. You can find his work over at the one, the only Alliance Defending Freedom. That's adflegal.org. One of the best firms in the country. Matt, thanks for hopping on with us.
Hey, thanks for having me, Tony.
We'll be back in just a second. There are some new developments that are starting to occur, so we'll try to function the last segment of the show around that. Don't go anywhere. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast live from the DNC and the riots in Chicago, Illinois, here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first to 93 WIBC.
Tony Katz.
We assume that you have one of those kind of soaking tubs.
Oh, you're talking about like up at the Coco Motel. The Kokomo there.
The Coco Motel?
Yep.
Please tell me there's a real place called the Coco Motel.
There is, yeah. I don't know if it's still there or not, but it used to be.
How was I not notified?
How have you not stayed there?
The Coco Motel?
Yeah.
Do you ever wonder how we're still on the air?
No.
Tony Katz, mornings 6 to 9 on 93 WIBC and WIBC.com.
To protect his family from disaster, Steve used his camera phone.
Done.
By taking pictures of his important documents, Steve can always have them stored online. Learn more simple disaster prep tips at ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
The deals keep coming at Andy Moore Ford in Plainfield. Tony Katz here at Andy Moore Ford. The people, the selection, the service, everything you want. Shop their wide selection of certified pre-owned vehicles, all marked with more savings, so you can be sure you're driving home with the best deal. And their commercial truck center is currently undergoing big changes, which means bigger and better things for you coming soon. Stop by today. Check out every vehicle they have on the lot and all the electric vehicles they've got. The Mustang Mach-E, the E-Transit, and that F-150 Lightning. All in stock with more arriving daily. The all-electric F-150 Lightning has you covered with seating up to 5, intelligent backup power, and onboard power for all your tools and gear. And they've got the incentives, the rebates, the federal, the state incentives that can save you up to $7,500 instantly on site. Talk to Andy Moore Ford in Plainfield about your new car, your new truck, or your new electric vehicle. Andy Moore Ford, M-O-H-R.
I love Andy.
AndyMooreFord.com.
Are you within 5 years of filing for Social Security? Get this, 96% of Americans, 96% forfeit an average of $111,000 in Social Security income, and it's all because, unfortunately, they file for their benefits at the wrong time. Learn how you can avoid this with a free customized Social Security analysis. It's from Bill Demery, your retirement guy right here in Indy.
So if you've saved more than $200,000 for retirement and have not yet filed for Social Security, schedule that free analysis right now by calling Bill Demery, 317-648-5120. Bill Demery. For some people, filing for Social Security early could result in more net income in retirement. The free analysis pinpoints exactly how you could get the most income from Social Security. Bill Demery, 317-648-5120. That's 317-648-5120.
Remember the big bad wolf? Michaelis does. Because around here, all that huffing and puffing and blowing houses down stuff comes in the form of rain, wind, and hail. And no matter what your structure is made of, Michaelis is made of first responders and craftsmen who can restore it to better than new condition. Water, storms, fire, and wet basements. Life happens. Michaelis happens to help you through it. Call 844-FIX-INDY. Make it Michaelis.
Do you need air conditioning service and need to find a local well-trained expert you can trust, like Family Heating and Air Conditioning? Find that American Standard Air dealer at IndyHomeComfort.com.
Advent is now open in Indianapolis and Avon. Find out more at AdventKnows.com.
Breathe well with simple solutions. AdventKnows.com.
Through their service, veterans have our backs. Now we should have theirs. Learn more at GotYour6.org. Indy Humane, committed to helping Central Indiana's pets in need since 1905. Find your new best friend today. IndyHumane.org.
If you can plan barbecues and weddings, you can plan to protect yourself from a natural disaster. Sign up for local alerts, prepare an emergency kit, and make a family communications plan. Get started at ready.gov/plan.
Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Hey, welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on 93 WIBC. We have reports that down near Union Park again, where they were just cleared away, the protesters from the Palestine LGBTQ abortion socialist Marxist coalition, they're back. They've returned to the, quote, no pig zone, as they spray painted over on the kind of the back dugout of the small baseball diamond there in Union Park in Chicago. And wouldn't you know it, man, Tony Kinnett, I just hate being right. It stinks when I'm proven correct yet again. Well, they're getting a little more boisterous. What's changed? You can say, oh, well, it's because Kamala's back. That's why it's getting more boisterous. Guys, Union Park's not right up against the DNC. Why are they getting more boisterous right now? It's not dark outside yet, for those of you that are not on Central Time, otherwise known as the worst time zone in the country. Just for the record, Allison out there on the board, we agree that Eastern Time is God's chosen time zone, correct?
Yeah, I'd say so, yeah.
Yeah. Eastern Time Zone is important. Greenwich Mean Time in London sucks. Mountain Time, no one knows what the heck that is. Pacific Time is good for the libs of Los Angeles. Central Time is awful. I don't know. First of all, it allows Rob Kindle to call me at the early hours of when no one should be awake and drag me onto the air. I don't even know what I'm saying. I sure hope I didn't embarrass myself in the segment on his show this morning, because I didn't remember it at all after I passed back out and went back to sleep as soon as the segment was over. But here we are yet again. I will be covering just yet another beautiful riot. Why? Is it because I just love watching riots? No. In fact, I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed because this is yet another case of a district attorney, a state attorney, a prosecutor, what have you, running his or her mouth and saying, well, we need to consider the equitable circumstances of those that have just kind of been, incited to commit some kind of a crime. Honey, I don't care if someone was incited. Nothing gives you the right to throw a punch at a cop because you were protesting, you were in the road, you were blocking emergency vehicles from getting through, you were intimidating by calling out violent threats, not, hey, I don't like Israel, not from the river to the sea, even as a violent threat. I'm talking, I am going to blanking beat your face in blanking blank. And the last blank being an actual 4-letter racial slur for a Jew. I don't think that you get to suddenly claim that, oh, well, they were just, they were incited to act that way. I'm sorry, I don't know anyone who has actually been incited into shouting racial slurs and throwing trash cans through windows. Or shouting racial slurs and spray painting dugouts. No pig zones. If they actually were peaceful, do you know who wouldn't show up? The Chicago Metropolitan Police, the CPD, would not show up if the protests were actually peaceful. How do I know this? Because at the pro-life march in Washington, D.C. every year, you know what's never, ever, ever, ever violent? The pro-life march, the March for Life in Washington, D.C. that protests abortion. But you get protests in favor of abortion, and all of a sudden, man, we better have a couple of cops board up the windows. Why? Because, well, you know. So here we are at this very weird bifurcated location, as we've been trying to cover this week, the Inside and this weird aristocratic Marie Antoinette nonsense, where those on the left try to feel the joy or whatever when they're slapping the heroin into their wrists. And then on the outside, when the heroin-addicted homeless scamper out of the way. I actually talked to a man who is addicted to heroin today, and he told me that he had to move where he sleeps at night because the protesters threw up a bunch of their own tents where he wanted to sleep. So we even have in these Iranian-funded protests, American homelessness is getting outsourced to outside of city protesters, which is, it's just wild. This is such a strange set of circumstances. So again, I asked you tonight, or last night, I'm going to ask you again tonight, if you would take a moment and pray for Chicago. And especially pray for those that are both in the protests, that God would get a hold of their hearts and they would go home. Pray for the Chicago Police Department, that he would keep them safe, and that the officers wouldn't make any rash decisions. That's right, you can pray that everyone doesn't make rash decisions, me included. Pray that I don't make any rash decisions. That would not be fun in the slightest. I ask that you'd pray for those who are in their houses between the DNC and the stadium, as well as Union Park. There are a lot of neighborhood streets in which I had to watch, I'll be honest with you, in disgust and in pity, as families of all colors, and I would assume both sides of the political aisle, maybe different religions, peeked out behind their curtains and then closed them and shut the lights off in fear, in terror of the pro-Hamas groups that were marching by, screaming for global revolution and to, and I quote, kill the Democratic Party, end quote. Now, you might say that's the bed the Democrats have made for themselves. Absolutely. That is the bed that they've made for themselves, and that is going to take a serious toll as this party is split in two. Republicans learned the lesson a little too late that the establishment and the populace have to work together. Populism rises whenever there is discontentment with the status quo. And this very weird version of populism that in this case is kind of a socialistic Unitarianism that is coming out of the left, this kind of a classical Marxism hyped up with identity politics, this requires not just the pain and the terror from those in party leadership, but that kind of a storm requires the fear of those around them. And that is a price that is too high to pay. No child living in Chicago, as a parent, I'm just bringing this one home to the only way that I can think of, that if my kids had to look outside the window and see people marching past, screaming horrible, terrible, evil things, of course I would be mad. I cannot tell you the amount of heartbreak that I would have for my own kids at that innocence lost and that terror that would be with them for the rest of their lives. You hear anyone talking about that? The residents here in Chicago? I'm the only guy that's mentioned that yet? That there are children that are hiding in their homes with their parents, clinging to their parents' legs? Because there are riots that are walking past their street? Kids who can't go and play on the playground because a bunch of grown man children are screaming racist epithets from the top of the jungle gym before they try to knock down fences into the DNC? That's happening here. The situation demands your prayer, and I ask you, I don't care what side of the aisle is on, but individuals who do this kind of nonsense, who hold these kind of riots, have no place in our society amongst us. They do not belong here. That has nothing to do with the color, that has nothing to do with the religion, that has nothing to do with the socioeconomic status, none of that at all. If you believe that intimidation, violent intimidation, that is taken out in perspective on local families with children in their homes who can't leave, that, well, that's just what's necessary for the revolution, forget shame on you. Get out. Get out of this country. I want nothing to do with you. You have no place in this society. Go to a place like Iran where you can chant those kind of things and be celebrated for it. And by the way, if you think that that's a radical idea or some kind of a radical sentiment, please call in and complain, because I would love to play those voicemails on the air. Thank you very much for tuning in this evening. It's been a pleasure to be with you. We'll be back tomorrow. I don't know. Maybe I'll be back in Indiana. Maybe we'll still be here in Chicago. Depends on whether or not I get shivved tonight. Take care. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on the Daily Signal and First on 93